asking if you can do this. In my main, I could say rectangle rect equals new rectangle, and then I want to pass in a point. I can just say new point and so what that does is it creates a new point object. As he said, it's an anonymous one. I don't actually assign that to any reference, but I created it in the call to this. So it gets created here, gets passed in here, and this local variable p points to that created object. Then it assigns an origin. Now origin points to that object. That ends, and p as a local variable goes away, but I still have origin pointing to this anonymously created object, so that anonymously created object still exists because something's still pointing to it. And everyone goes on their way. And so this is somewhat common in Java because you don't need to create this thing. Now, the problem with doing this in C++ was who deletes that? Right? So you ended up creating this new memory somewhere, and you just have to hope that whoever you pass it to knows that it's their job to delete it.
You have no control whatsoever because
Right.
it is anonymous too. You can't tell whether
Right.
the compiler's going to delete it or not.
Well, the compiler won't delete it. So in C++, we almost never do that because you would want to keep a pointer to that so that you could delete it.
How does the garbage collector, it's called, how does that know when something doesn't have any pointers to it?
That's actually a pretty complicated question. There are, you can actually go to YouTube videos on garbage collection animations, and it's not referring to like garbage man in the street. It's like Java, you can go look at Java garbage collection animations, and there are several different strategies that people use. I don't even know how they switch them. I think you can actually specify when you start Java, when you run a Java program, you can specify some of the garbage collection parameters. It's actually a complicated subject. People are still studying it enough that some people get PhDs in it. So it's kind of funny that I get a PhD in garbage collection.
Well, I think they might call that
Profile.
Yeah.
But it's still, that's a fun thing to do, is to tell someone, what do you do? I got a PhD in garbage collection.
Nobody would even believe it.
Okay. So that's what I want to show there is you can have multiple constructors. We already know that. We know how to reference the objects field. We know how to call an objects method. The garbage collector, just what we were mentioning. I guess I skipped over that in case some of you don't know. The garbage collector is the name of the algorithm that goes and figures out which objects are no longer in use. Because in Java, you don't delete objects. I don't even think there's a delete keyword. I've never used it. I just don't even think it exists. So you use new all the time. You make new things, but you never delete them. And the reason you never delete them is there's this magic thing out there called the garbage collector that is watching everything. So,
Big brother.
yeah, it's Big Brother. It's watching all your objects, and when there's an object, it's kind of maybe a little dark. When an object is not being paid attention to by anymore, the garbage collector steals it and destroys it. So, so any objects that are sitting there that are being watched, as soon as somebody's not watching, a particular object, then it gets killed. And that's a little bit of oversimplification. If the garbage collector was that diligent, your performance would suffer significantly. So what happens is the garbage collector has certain thresholds, and at certain times it kicks in and says, I need to go clean things up, and it will go find stuff that it can make available free backup. One of the things that people, if you think about garbage collection, one common strategy is what they would call a mark and sweep. I don't know all the details of it, but basically what happens is every time you have a reference to an object that you set, there's a counter that says I have someone else referencing this. And every time you lose a reference to an object, you decrement the count. And if the count is ever 0, then when the garbage collector sweeps comes along, you can just throw it out. And that works okay. Yeah.
That's actually reference counting.
Oh, that's, yeah.
Mark and
Yeah.
sweep is when you mark every object with a bit and then you just delete everything that doesn't have that bit set.
Does the mark and sweep take care of the islands?
Yeah, because you still need to have some sort of pool that holds all of the
Okay.
objects. Yeah, but hotspot VM is what does it, and it's definitely probably the most complex garbage collector that's.
Yeah, they get really complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the problems you can have is what I was referring to as islands, is where you have two objects that refer to each other and no one else refers to them. Then they really should go away. And just the reference count, you're right, I was describing reference count. The reference count version doesn't work very well with that.
Is it possible to have memory leaks in Java?
Yes. But it's usually, what it is you have objects that you forgot. And there's some random reference somewhere laying about that is still holding on a reference to it. I know it doesn't, so it's a different kind of memory leak. It's not a memory leak like I allocated memory and now I can't get to it. Because you actually could get to it, it's just you forgot about it. It happens a lot like with the collection classes. Is you add stuff into collection classes and then you never empty it out. And so all this kind of junk just keeps piling up in this big collection. And then sometimes it might be just one little object, but that one little object has a fan out that just touches hundreds of the other objects and keeps them all alive. Just because you have this one little thing stuck in that corner of a collection somewhere.
Bringing that up, do you actually want us to execute the clear command on our whatever we're using for a collector before we
No.
exit the program?
No, that's not necessary.
Okay, I thought I'd ask.
Yeah, and so Java or memory leaks in Java are more, like I said, they're more where you lose track of what you have. Java programs on the web, people use Java on the web, right? They use it for application servers and other kind of web apps. Sometimes it's called applets. The one aspect is called applets, but they're also server-side servers, yeah. When I worked at GoDaddy, my job there was in Java, doing a web application in Java running on the Tomcat server. Tomcat is a application server. It was at that time, I don't know if it still is. It was merely just a reference design. It wasn't meant for production, but GoDaddy didn't want to pay for a production server. So we used the reference design. The problem is it ran out of memory because it had memory leaks. And so it would run for a while, and the memory image you could see on the server, day after day or hour after hour, it would just keep getting bigger, 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 bigger. And then every few days or whatever, they'd have to restart the whole thing. So definitely it can happen. And some of you, if you run Java programs, which isn't super common, but sometimes you will, if you run Java programs like Eclipse, Eclipse has memory leaks too. And if you run it just leave it running on your computer, there's some places, sometimes it falls into a hole and just starts chewing up memory, and it will just, the JVM will run out of memory and then Eclipse will crash. So, it can happen.
But if you have Eclipse closed, that's not an issue.
Yeah, I mean, when Eclipse is closed, it's not going to use memory. In the early days of Java, as a managed memory program, people got a little lax because they're like, it's garbage collected. I don't have to worry about memory leaks ever. And so they just got a little crazy. And so a lot of programs, especially early Java programs, it was amazing to me how quickly they just chew up memory. All right. We know how to return from a method, so I don't need to go into detail there.
Just one other catch.
Huh?
I don't think they put parentheses around return.
It doesn't have to.
Yeah.
Okay, and then The this keyword, some people will use it. For example, this dot x equals x, this dot y equals y. I don't care. If you want to use it, go ahead. I've gone back and forth personally in my style on this a few times, and now I just don't use it. I find it just a little more verbose than needed. One of the reasons people do this is they say, I want to be able to tell the difference between a local parameter and a class member. I think from my experience, what I see nowadays, the more common way of doing this is to name your class members with a prefix, such as M underscore for member, M underscore, so this would be M underscore X, M underscore Y. Or maybe not the underscore, just MX, MY. So that's
I've seen double under.
double under, yeah. Some people don't like to start with underscores or double underscores because in other programming languages like C, it's a convention that you use double or double underscores names as special things like test APIs or secret backdoor access stuff. So
What system has both of those?
PHP does something like that, doesn't it?
Under $, under get, $, under post.
Yeah, those are the special system variables.
Yeah, there's
Yeah, yeah.
those that you know, yeah.
Python's operators are defined as that, and it's all the implicit methods like compare and represent and string.
Oh, they put underscore on
It's
those.
double under name of the function, double under.
Yeah. So, again, most of what I see is M under or just M, and I think Eclipse out of the box for Java assumes M without an underscore. And so, like, if you create a class, you can actually right-click in a class and say Add Data Members, and it will just say type in name. You just type in that stuff, and then it will create the declarations for you. I think it will put M as a prefix for it. And then if you say generate getters and generate setters, which you can also just right-click, it's like right-click, refactor, or right-click source code, generate getters, and it pops up a dialog, and it will list all your data members and say what ones do you want getters and setters for. You just checkbox it and say generate, and then it writes 30 lines of code for you.
I can't believe I never knew about this.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So, but real people don't use that. Real people type it all by hand in VI without arrow keys.
According to PSU.
Yes. So, but in Eclipse, I think I haven't used it in that mode for a while because I define my own prefixes. But I think out of the box, it comes with that prefix, and then the getter setter code is smart enough to strip that M off. So when it makes those things. Anyway. Now, this one is interesting.
Yeah, that was interesting. I never thought about doing it that way before.
Which one? The constructors?
Constructors, so we're
Yeah.
writing constructors using this.
So notice that I've got these 4 constructors, and really they're kind of all doing the same thing. And so I've got a bit of duplicate code. For example, here, I'm making a new point. If I suddenly decided that my origin shouldn't be 0, 0, but should be some other number, maybe, so that I'm not up in the upper right, but I'm like in the middle of the plane or something, then I'd have to remember to change it in 2 places. So stand up here. Oh, with the hyphen, stay 0. So Java supports the idea of what I think they call it chaining constructors. That's what I call it. So here, I've got the idea where I take a rectangle. This is a different rectangle class. Notice int is x, y, width, height. So it's got 4 integers, different class. But we can use the same principle in the other one. So a rectangle with, well, it has one main constructor that does all the work. It's a constructor that takes all 4 arguments, the x, the y, the width, the height. And then it sets all those values, those 4 values. Well, for convenience, I'm going to provide a constructor that takes no arguments, and that's going to give it a origin 0, 0 and a width and height of 1. And the way I do that is I say this 0, 0, 1, 1. And what that will do is it will find another constructor, because I'm in a constructor, we'll find another constructor that takes 4 integers, which happens to be this one, and so it does this. And then I can do the same thing here. this is similar, this is where I just passed in the width and the height, but I want the origin to be 0, 0. So I could have done that over here. I could have had the one super constructor, which does everything. It takes in a point, a width, and a height. And then I could have rewritten these to use that super constructor. So for example, this one could have been, oops. New point, anonymous, comma, and then 0, 0. And then this one could have been this P, comma, 0, 0. And so on. So in this case, the constructors are pretty simple, and so you only gain a little bit. But if the constructors were more complicated, did some more error checking, if this guy was making sure, for example, that my width and the height are never negative, or maybe not even 0, maybe that's not allowed, that check would only have to be done here. You wouldn't have to do it here or anywhere else. Same thing with point. If there were some requirements on point on the arguments, then we could check that here.